Hello, good afternoon, everyone, or maybe good morning, because I don't know what time of the day you will be viewing this. And so, this is a continuation of what we have discussed um, based on Pegafeto's work and his account about the Philippines. And so, right now, I mean, in the first part, we focused on the events that transpired during Magellan's visit in the Philippines. And so, right now, we are going to focus more on the Filipino culture during the pre-Spanish period, which, of course, um, we are going to use as well the description that Pegafetta provided to us. No? And so to start, long before the arrival of the Spaniards, ancient Filipinos were living in scattered barangays and ruled by different chieftains. And I think you can also observe that one in Pagafeto's work that in Cagayan or in Butuan, there were two kings ruled on that certain place. No? It was Ria Calambu and Ria Sianin. Okay? And although they were living separately, they were similar in many ways in the religion, mode of dressing, houses, system of government, and marriage practices, economic activities. In short, they were really refined and civilized. And they possess distinct culture that distinguish them from other race. Okay? And so, also, if you are going to refer to this to the description of Pegafetta, both of the king Kalambu and Siani wore a gold earrings, which both of them Kalambu and Siani have, and also with the cloth in their head, almost the same. And talking about housing, houses before were made of light materials like wood, bamboo, and ipa palm. A ladder was placed to prevent strangers as well from intruding when the owner is not around. And a strong post at the lower part of the house was enclosed, and then a jar of heart was placed in a gallery called batalan. I don't know if you are familiar with jar of heart or called batalan. Batalan is like Filipino families tend to have these. It's like a big vase that they store water in there. Okay, so for their clothing, let's start for the male. Male clothing, the upper part was a jacket with short sleeves called kangan. And then while the lower part was a strip of cloth wrapped around the waist and in between the legs called bahag. Males used a piece of cloth or headgear called putong. I think in most representation of yes, chieftain si Lapu-Lapu, you can also notice that si Lapu-Lapu wears a bahag and cloth and a headgear in the head, which is a cloth, and also it's like more like we call nowadays a blazer. Okay, so for the female, they wore baro or camisa. Okay, as you can see in the picture, a jacket sleeves. The lower part was called saya. Okay, so Filipinos, Filipino women are really covered in cloth. So that's why what we refer to as now as if you see a woman who's covered in cloth and no skin is seen, we call sometimes we call those women dalagang Filipina. Okay. So so much for the clothing. Now we go to social classes. Okay. For the social classes, we have three. We have the nobles, freemen, and the slaves. So nobles composed of rulers and their families occupied the highest class. They were usually addressed as Gat, Lakad, Raha, or Datu. Okay. And the next the second to the strata is the freeman, the working class. And the last is the slaves. Slaves were classified into two. We have aliping namamahay at aliping nasa gilid-gilid. Okay? Now let's talk about aliping namamahay. Aliping namamahay were not full-fledged slaves. They had their own respective families and their own houses. They were required to serve their masters only during planting and harvesting period. Meaning to say, if you are part of this certain community or yes, a certain community ruled by a certain shifting, say for example, Raha Humabon, if you live in those times, during harvest time, if you are a working class, no. What we call aliping na mamahay, sorry for the term, you usually go and participate during the harvesting period. Okay? And also the planting. Okay? And for the aliping sa gilid-gilid were the real slaves. No? They were homeless and then forbidden to form their own families. They are required to stay in their master's dwelling and they could be used as a payment for debt. Okay, remember during the description in the description of Pegafetta when they arrived in Zubu or in Cebu, they were trading, no, that happened in the port. They were trading of slaves and goods. Okay, so a part of those, no, are Filipino slaves or slaves from different parts of Asia. Okay, they're trade slaves. And that is what we call the liping sa gilid-gilid. You know, if you come to think of it, it's like they were no individual or there were no persons at all. They were seen as an object, no? Object as a value that can be traded or that can be disposed. And for the government was called barangay. Okay, there was no national government, but there were many independent barangay and datus. But there was no datu strong enough to unite the archipelago into one nation. Because if you come to think of it, each of the chieftains in different barangays take pride, no, of their certain territories. And at the same time, they respect other chieftains as well. No? So they respect the boundaries and territories. So there was no chieftain or a datu before that was having the idea of uniting the whole Philippines. However, they were united to form a confederation. We say a confederation like alliances. So it was headed by a ruler called Dato or Raha. Okay, so in this confederation or alliances, like it is formed like for certain reasons. Okay, and later we will discuss that one as we go through on into our discussion. So here, the role of the datu is implementing laws, you know, and maintaining peace and order. Okay, giving protection as well to his subjects. You know, if you are part of the community and you are a working class or alipin sa gilid-gilid or alipin na mamahay, if you are part of that certain community, you are protected by the datus or the rahas. And of course, you are going to pay something in return. Okay? And he also made the law, no? The datus, with the assistance of the group of elders who gave advice. And he acted as a judge during the trial. And if the datus are really having a hard time deciding what is right or what is wrong, he would ask for, you know, a supreme being assistance, you know, or intervention. Okay. And so let's proceed with the taxation. Ancient Filipinos started, excuse me, started the practice of paying taxes. You know? The purpose of paying taxes was simple. It was for the protection they received from the datu. The collected tax was called buwis. The chieftain's family members were enjoying exemption from paying taxes because, of course, they were part of the family. And non-payment of taxes was already punishable during this period. Of course, there were no certain account, an accurate account as to what kind of punishment they will be receiving. But let's just go na lang na there is really a punishment. Now, for the alliances among barangays were formed. Again, this confederation between barangays were formed because of trading, something like that, protection against common enemies, or for many reasons. Okay, so the purpose of forming alliances was for trade, peace, and mutual protection. An alliances was sealed through blood compact or sanduguan to ensure conformity, sincerity, commitment of the chieftains. Well, if you can remember, in the work of Pegafetta, when Raha Humabon talked with Magellan and tried to make a deal, because Raha Humabon was more like threatened by the presence of Magellan because they were told that Spain is a very strong country. So Raha Humabon had a second thought of trying to collect tax from Magellan, and so what Raha Humabon did to Magellan is he wanted to have a sanduguan or a blood compact to to ensure the commitment of both of the parties, or commitment of Magellan that he's with, that they are friends, not enemy. Okay. And when it comes to the courtship and marriage, there were many means now of getting a girl during that time. So we have, of course, the man was required to give a dowry. Okay. So we have first bigay kaya. Bigay kaya was a type of dowry consisted of a piece of a land or gold. Okay. And the groom's parent gave a gift called panghimuyan. Okay. So of course, aside from the dowry or bigay kaya, the groom's parent should give another gift which is called panghimuyan. It could be any gift. No? It depends. Carabao, a piece of land, a piece of anything. No? And then we have the himaraw. Himaraw was another payment for raising the future bride during her infancy period, to be paid by the groom's parents also. So it was more like of an arranged marriage. No? Even though that you are still in your infancy stage or period, you are already set to marry a certain man or a certain girl. Okay, that is what we call himaraw. And early Filipinos practiced divorce as well. Several grounds of divorce were adultery, abandonment on the part of the husband, and cruelty and insanity. Well, there are a lot of reasons, but these are rather the general reasons for the grounds of annulment or divorce. And next, we have the religious and belief. Okay. Before Filipinos worship the idols, no? Before we embraced Christianity that was introduced to us by the Spaniards. So we have these idols, for example, the Bathala, which is the supreme being. You know, this is what I'm trying to say earlier. Now, when the Dato is having a hard time deciding on a trial, no? So he would ask intervention of the Bathala or the Supreme Being. And we have the Idiyanale, the god of agriculture. They offer tribute to the god of agriculture during planting and harvesting season or period. And we have the Sidapa, god of death. So in Christian religion, that is equivalent to Lucifer. We have the Agni, or the god of fire, the Balangaw, god of rainbow, the Mandarangan, god of war. We have the Lalahon, god of harvest, and Siginarugan, god of hell. Okay? And they also believe in the immortality of souls and life after death. Okay? Before Roman Catholic and Islams were introduced, now natives really worship many gods and goddesses. Okay? So as I have mentioned, those are the examples. So to continue, there were sacred animals as well, which they venerate, like white monkey and crocodiles. So they do not harm these animals because they believe that they are sacred. And they were also sacred place and sacred trees, which nobody was allowed to cut down. I think even until now, uh, I think there are still beliefs, no, that if you're going to cut down a tree or a certain tree in the back of your house, there would be unfortunate events that would happen to you, you know, because some say that there is a dilingon atok, no, that live in that certain tree. And also they worship sun and the moon. Okay. Okay, so much for the religious belief. Let's go ahead and proceed with the economic life. So, the economic life during the pre-Spanish period, they practiced trades of different barangays from different regions and islands. They were made possible using boats. So foreign trade was carried with countries like Borneo, China, Japan, Cambodia, Java, and Siam, which is now called Thailand. And other means of livelihood were shipbuilding, weaving, poultry raising, mining, weaving, and lumbering. Okay, so there were a lot of livelihood that Filipino practiced during the pre-Spanish period. And that we can say that we are really rich in culture. Okay. So for the foreign trade, like Borneo, China, and Japan, China was one of the, what do you call this, the popular traders in the Philippines during those times. Because even in the work of Pegafetta as well, if you can remember, I think Ria Calambu, no, it was Ria Siani, offered to Magellan a China ware. I don't know what is that Chinaware looks like, but it's there in the written in the work of Pagafetta, gifted to Magellan from Ria Siani. Okay, so they trade silk, China products, and Chinese traders would often get gold from it, because we are very rich in gold during those times. Okay. So, and that will be the end of our topic. Okay. So this is just a very short discussion. Hope that you will find this video helpful to your studies. And once again, you have a good day and stay safe always.